Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of this Kali podcast. Welcome back to another episode of this podcast. I just want to do like a live stream in regards to uh, the whole situation with what's going on in Palestine. And there are some things that I want to talk about in regards to Jordan Peterson. In case you guys don't know, recently Jordan Peterson tweeted out a very bizarre tweet where he basically told the Israeli president, Mr. Netanyahu, to give the Palestinians help. Now, I already knew this guy was a scoundrel, but I just didn't know how much of a scoundrel he was. So it was kind of a shock. But then again, not really. I mean, like, I know that this guy is basically done that. But yeah, let's take a look at what he actually said. Then I'll make a reaction. Inshallah. By the way, it's another surprise stream, but in this episode, we're going to talk about Jordan Peterson and his little rant, Twitter rant against Palestinians. So let me show you guys the tweet that he made. Um, so basically, he made a tweet uh, to uh, to the president of Israel. There we go. Find it. By the way, leave some comments, inshallah, if you're watching. Okay, there we go. Share the screen. There it is. So this is what Jordan Peterson tweeted out. He wrote to Netanyahu, give him help. Give him help. And he's talking about the Palestinians. So, yeah, enough is enough. So imagine like telling a war criminal to kill innocent people. Because you need to understand the context of what's actually going on here, right? Because on the surface, you could argue, oh, well, it looks like that, terrorists are attacking, like, quote unquote terrorists are attacking, like, Israel. So he's telling his friend to, stand up for his country. Except his friend and his country is an illegitimate country that is not recognized by a lot of people around the world. And he's basically telling, who's also known to be in violation of international laws, and basically a war criminal. So basically, what's actually happening is he's telling a war criminal to commit war crimes against civilians of another country, legit civilians of another country. So that is basically what's going on. Now, this disgusting piece of shit has been on my radar for quite a while now, and I've been meaning to like make a response to his like little interview that he did with Netanyahu. I think he did this interview quite a while ago. So I'm gonna watch that interview and respond to it. Please note that I probably won't go into too much detail. I'll also want to probably watch the whole thing. But if you watch Netanyahu's arguments as to why he thinks Israel should exist as a state, it's absolutely hilarious. Like this guy's so bad. Like his arguments are so laughable that I can't believe that people actually elected this guy. I mean, he's an idiot. Like Netanyahu is an idiot. And inshallah, I will show you guys how much of an idiot he is. So let's go to YouTube and let me share it with you so you guys will understand. By the way, guys, again, sorry for the surprise stream, but I just thought that I would do a stream right now. All right, here we go. Okay, let's take a look. So let's take a look at Netanyahu's interview with Jordan Peterson. Now we'll do the where is it? There we go. Okay, found it. Show screen. There we go. So the reason I'm kind of like responding to this is because these people, this this little piece of meat back here, basically the way the whole interview went, is basically him just repeating some of the some very basic conspiracy theories. If you guys are not familiar with it, it's just so dumb, and I'm gonna demonstrate. So yeah, let's watch watching those.
Practically were no tenants there. That's my argument.
By the way, can you guys hear the sound? Is anyone there? Can you guys hear the sound? Okay, we're back. So yeah, just skip that. Yeah, okay. Is anyone watching? Like, there's like literally no one here. Oh man, I gotta stop doing streams unannounced. There's like no one watching. But I just wanted to do this kind of like a surprise stream. I did one yesterday as well. So yeah, okay. Okay, so let's start watching. Okay.
Elected as Prime Minister of Israel. This is a very interesting development as far as I'm concerned. It's the
Oh, I can't hear it.
first time I've had the opportunity to speak with someone who is a sitting head of state or soon will
By the way, can you guys hear something? Yeah, hear the sound? That's weird. I think I hear it.
be. And I think the reason that that's relevant
Give me a second.
and worthy of note is because it's one of the markers for the development of a new kind of political dialogue. We're in a situation now where it's possible to sit with a political leader and have a genuine conversation for a long period of time. We'll go at least 90 minutes, unscripted, so that there's no soundbite quality or editing to it. You just get the unvarnished words of someone who's in a position to make decisions that affect all of us. And so I'm very excited about this. I'll read the bio and then we'll go on to the interview. Benjamin Netanyahu, as I said, was recently reelected as Prime Minister of Israel, having
Blah, blah, blah.
previously served in the office.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. For some reason, whenever I start talking, the sound just disappears. So you know what? I'm gonna get off this earphone and just use regular.
from 1996.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Hello? Okay, we're good. All right, I'm not sure what happened there. But anyway, we're back. We have the banner here. All right, let's go. Let's see what this guy says.
To 1999 and 2009 to 2021. From 1967 to 1972, he served as a soldier and commander in Sayeret Matkal. Interesting
blah.
personal tale, familial tale. And would you be kind enough to walk me and my viewers and
So basically, Netanyahu is the prime minister of Israel. But anyway, we all know this. Let's get to it.
listeners through your rationale for the moral justification for Israel, the political justification as well? And I'm going to do what I can to my limited ability, let's say, to push back. I've heard the arguments of often young people who are more prone to give credence and sympathy, say, to the Palestinian viewpoint. And I'd like to rectify my ignorance and maybe help my viewers and listeners do the same thing. So it would be useful to start with Herzl.
Well, I'd start. Herzl was what I call our modern Moses, but I'd actually start with the original Moses. The Jewish people have lived in the land of Israel, what is now the state of Israel. Have lived here and have been attached to this place for about 3,500 years, 3.5 millennia. Now, for the
By the way, okay, so so imagine you have a land dispute, right? Imagine you have a land dispute, and your first line of defense is to say, oh, thousands and thousands of years ago, there was this native people that lived in this land, and then they left, then they came back again, then they left again, then they came back again, and then they left again, then they came back again, and that somehow justifies us taking this land. Like, would anyone in the history of any legal system accept that? No. This is laughable. Like, the fact that they're talking about like ancient history without giving any justification for why a state like Israel should exist on top of other people's land is just laughable. First of all, Moses, or Musa alayhi salam, has absolutely nothing to do with the current secular state of Israel. Okay? Moses and his followers could possibly be argued that they established the ancient Israel, right? But ancient Israel has nothing to do with modern day Israel. The modern day Israel is a secular state. Modern day Israel did not exist back then. So just because Moses and his followers had some claim to the lands of Palestine or land of Israel, doesn't mean that you have any claim to these lands. Okay. Also, another thing, land ownership is not based on ethnicity. Okay. Land ownership is based on lineage, right? Like, for example, if you have a land, you then pass off that land to your son or your daughter, right? So what is the evidence that they have any kind of like, lineage based evidence that shows that this Palestinian lands belongs to them? There's nothing other than some stories in the Bible. Like that's your evidence for laying claim to Palestine? Like this is laughable. Like, and this is the type of kind of like right wing kind of like garbage rhetoric that these people basically espouse. But the thing is that if you just simply take a completely because you need to understand, they're trying to argue, because the question is, does Israel have the right to exist, right? That's the question. And here this guy is telling tall tales about his religious belief, about, oh, thousands of years ago there's Moses and this and that. Okay, even if I, of course we as Muslims believe all that, but you know what does that has to do with your current modern claim to the lands of Palestine? Nothing. So anyway, let's just continue.
First 2 millennia, roughly, of that time, we were living in what is described in a text commonly known as the Bible. So the Bible describes how the Jewish people lived on this land, were attached to this land, fought off conquerors, sometimes were conquered.
Oh, Palestine belongs to us because it says so in the Bible. Also, like, then if that's the case, then according to the Quran, Musa alayhi salam was a Muslim, right? So if he's a Muslim, then shouldn't, by that logic, Palestine belong to Muslims? By this logic, like, what is he talking about? Also, this is funny. So basically, he's saying that, oh, ancient Israelites lived in like Israel, like this thousands of years ago. But then, by that logic, Canaanites who lived long before Israelites did, don't they also have a claim to this land? But I'm gonna get to that. There's a funny stuff that comes out of that. But let's continue.
But stayed on their land. And that continued for a very long time, until roughly the 6th, 7th century, actually, after the birth of Christ, okay? For roughly 2,000 years. We were conquered by the Romans, we were conquered by the Byzantines. They did a lot of bad things to us, but they didn't really exile us, contrary to what people think, okay?
That's false. That is a straight up lie. That is a absolutely laughable lie. So you know what? I'm not gonna go into too much into books or like historical books and stuff like that. I'm just gonna use some basic research methods to show you guys how much of a liar this guy is. So let me pull up a few tabs here. So if you just search history of Israel, you can get like basically the Wikipedia. It takes like 5 seconds to find this. You can get like this Wikipedia version of like what happened. Of course, like Wikipedia is not perfect, but like I'm just showing you because of, in case you guys don't have the time to kind of like go through some of the historical books. But anyway, so let's go through some of this history, right? What do we have here? First, before the ancient Israel existed, there was the Canaanites, right? Canaan. The Canaanites are archaeology attested from the Bronze Age, from that time period, basically. And so that's when the Canaanites lived, right? I'm just doing the basic surface level research. This takes like 5 seconds to debunk this. So then you had the early Israelites, and this is when you had the kingdom of Israel or Samaria or whatever, right? And then that was then destroyed. So you had this, and then it was invaded. They were invaded by the Assyrians, right? The Assyrians, they invaded this. Tiger Pelias III and Assyria invaded Israel in around 732 BCE. The kingdom of Israel fell to the Assyrians. So yeah, basically they were invaded by the Assyrians, and kingdom of Israel was destroyed. So they were kicked out, kind of. Then near the 7th CE, BCE, they became a vassal state of Neo-Babylonian Empire, right? Then during the time of I can't pronounce this, Nebuchadnezzar II of Babylon, he conquered Jerusalem. Then he destroyed the first temple and basically razed the city. And the kingdom of Judah was abolished, like their kingdom was completely destroyed. Again, this has nothing to do with Israel, by the way. This is just because he made the claim that, apparently the Romans did not kick them out, which is false, as you'll see. So yeah, then they were abolished. And then after that, you had the Persians that conquered the land. And the Israelites basically helped the Persians. Then you had Heracles came in, and Heracles basically committed a massacre against the Israelites. Here, we'll talk about this. Where is it? Yeah, it's late here. Yeah, there we go. It's during the Byzantine period. And during the Byzantine, most of them actually became Christians. And during the late Byzantine period, in 611, Khosrow II ruled Sasanian Empire, invaded the Byzantine Empire. He was helped by Jewish figures recruited by Benjamin of Tiberias and captured in Jerusalem. The True Cross was captured by the Persians. The Jewish Himmerite kingdom in Yemen may also have provided support. Naya bin Hushel was made governor of Jerusalem. Christian historian of the period claimed Jews massacred Christians in the city, but there's no evidence for this. Leading modern history to account the Palestinians with the True Cross and the Medipiti with the Byzantine. And here we go. Heracles massacred the Jewish population of Galilee and Jerusalem while renewing the ban on Jews entering the latter. So, so remember what he said, that the Romans did not ban them. It literally takes 5 seconds to debunk this. Even less than 5 seconds. Here, Heracles massacred the Jewish population of Galilee and Jerusalem while renewing the ban on Jews entering the latter. So he banned the Jews from entering Palestine or Israel. And here, this guy is saying that they didn't abolish us, they didn't kick us out. This is absolutely false. This is absolutely false. Fake news. So he's lying. He is lying in front of millions of people. That's what he does. Like this kind of like right-wing conspiracy theory nut jobs. They're lying about history, and it's no different than kind of like the Hindu Bhakts, and they also do the same thing. They lie about it. But if you guys want to read about this, you can read about this from the History of Jews in a Greco-Roman World. It's a book, I think. Share the link. Yeah, basically it's this book. Hold on, let me see if I can share this. Let me share the book. Here we go. History of Jews and Greco-Roman Empire, written by Peter Schaffer. Here, this one. So yeah, it basically describes all the history of the Jews in the Greco-Roman Empire and Judaism and Palestine and what happened during the period. But anyway, let's get back to the screen. Yeah. Now, you know what? Let me keep the tab open because I'm going to come back to this. Stop sharing. Let's go back to his like nonsense so we can continue. Let's go.
The loss of our land actually occurred when the Arab conquest took place in the 7th century. The Arabs burst out from Arabia, and they did something that no other conqueror, not the Romans, not the Byzantines, not the Greeks before them, not Alexander the Great, nobody did before. They actually started taking over the land of the Jewish farmer. They brought in military colonies that took over the land. And gradually over the next 2 centuries.
Again, false, fake news. This guy's lying again. Again, like, let's go back to that to the Wikipedia tab. Okay, let's me share this. Where is it? There we go. So let's read what actually happened regarding the first Muslim conquest under Umar radiallahu anhu. Then we're going to read what exactly happened, and you'll see that this is a complete lie. Muslims never kicked out the Jews. If anything, there was already a ban on Jews, and Umar bin Khattab, Umar radiallahu anhu, actually lifted that ban, and he allowed Jews to stay in Israel. So it's the opposite of what they're claiming. Umar radiallahu anhu actually allowed Jews to stay here, where the Romans actually banned them. So he's like he's saying the opposite of what actually happened. It's the Muslims that actually allowed the Jews to come back, not that the Muslims kicked them out, or the Arabs. You know. So let's read this. Yeah, there we go. The Levant was conquered by an Arab army under the command of Umar bin Khattab in 635 and became a province known as Bilad al-Sham of the Rashidun Caliphate. Two military districts, Jund Fishad and Jud, were established in Palestine. A new city called Rahma was built by the Muslim capital of Jund Filistin, while Tiberias served as capital of Urdin. The Byzantine ban on Jews living in Jerusalem came to an end. So during the Rashidun Khilafat, Umar and the others, they lifted the ban that the Jews had on them, that they cannot return to Israel, right? They actually lifted the ban. So if anything, Jewish people like Netaniahu should actually thank Umar bin Khattab, should thank like Uthman radiallahu anhu, right? Instead, they're saying, "Oh, these Arabs, they kicked us out." No, it's the opposite. They actually allowed you to come, allowed your ancestors to come here and stay here. Although the supposed ancestors, because there's no evidence that they're even related in any shape or form. But yeah, Umar bin Khattab allowed them to come back, allowed the Jews to come back, Jewish people. Now, if you read through this, I'm not going to read the whole thing because I don't want to waste time. But so yeah, basically during this time period, the Jewish people or the Israelites actually lived quite comfortably in the Muslim world. For example, a temple for them was built. Jewish temples have been located. Temple Mount from both buildings recorded because it was previously destroyed, and they actually had rights under Muslim leaders, which they didn't under Romans, because Romans basically just kicked them out and committed massacre against them. So, so basically, what he's saying is the complete opposite of what actually happened. Now, however, there is one dynasty that basically I think had some problems, but even they didn't kick them out. For example, I think it was during the Fatimid reign who conquered the region, and they were basically Shia. Was destroyed. So, Caliph Omar II, this is not the Omar Adhan, by the way, this is later king that was named Omar, introduced a law requiring Jews and Christians to wear identifying clothes. Jews were required to wear yellow stars around the neck and stuff like that. Humiliated, then persecuted non-Muslims, blah, blah, blah. So basically, they're claiming that later on, during the Muslim rule, some of them there's some discrimination maybe or something like that. But there's no evidence that shows that Arabs actually kicked them out. So it's just a straight up lie. It's just straight up lied. So, and here they talk about the demographic change that happened, which is that although the Arab conquests were relatively peaceful and did not cause widespread destruction, it did alter the country's demographics significantly. On ensuing several centuries, the region experienced a drastic decline in population. And that's because the thing is that when it comes to Jewish people or Israelites, they basically, it's very restrictive religion in the sense that they didn't kind of like marry outside of their faith. And a lot of Jewish people actually converted to Islam. And a lot of them kind of just, left to other places due to some other reason. So basically, they declined normally. Like they were never kicked out, or there was like no kind of like genocide or anything like that. Basically, what happened is that they basically immigrated from Palestine and they left. And this is not to say there was no discrimination. Of course, I'm sure, as happens with different communities. But what he claims that apparently Arabs came and kicked them out is absolutely false. So this guy is lying, Netanyahu. And this Peterson, I don't know what's wrong with him. I mean, this thing takes like 5 seconds to do basic research. Peterson could have do 5 seconds of Google research, or let's say 2 minutes, 2 minutes of Google research to debunk this. And Jordan Peterson couldn't do that. He couldn't do 2 minutes of research to debunk Netanyahu. 2 minutes. Actually, it took me less than 2 minutes to find this. Subhanallah, man. I mean, like, this is the level of kind of like, so this is basically propaganda. So this whole interview was propaganda. There was no like critical kind of like thing that was going on. Like even during the, as they mentioned it as well, even during the Ottoman period, they were never kicked out. Like I mean, there are still families in Israel that can trace their roots back to Ottoman period and even before them. And they're basically, the Palestinian Jews. They're known as Palestinian Jews, and these people can actually trace their family back to the Ottoman Empire. These are the actual living people of Israel. These are the actual Jewish people who belongs in Palestine, because their ancestors lived in the land. But these people, these new people, these quote unquote Israelites, they have no evidence or claim to this land because they cannot show evidence for it. So this argument that Israel should exist as a modern state because Moses and all his followers was there, all these Israelites were there. That has nothing to do with these people, because where is your evidence that you have any connection with them? Show us the lineage, like show us like the lineage that you're descendants of them. I mean, just simply being related by blood doesn't mean that you have to you can make claim in the land, right? It's just bizarre. But anyway, let's continue.
The Jews became a minority in our land. So it is under the Arab conquest that the Jews lost their homeland. The Arabs were the colonials. The Jews were the natives dispossessed. Well, that happens in history. The Jews were dispossessed. We were flung to the far corners of the earth, suffered unimaginable suffering because we had no homeland. But we didn't disappear, and we never gave up the dream of coming back to our ancestral homeland. So
we, who's we? But I find it interesting. He says we. Really? You think Musa alayhi salam, or his companions were like trying to establish secularism? Is that what they were doing? You keep saying we. Like, dude, Moses has nothing to do with you. Solomon has nothing to do with you. You are an elected secular president. Okay? Like, you don't follow the rabbinic laws. Okay? You despise the rabbinic laws. You allow things like LGBTQ. Like, one of your biggest spokesperson, Yuval Noah Harari, is openly gay. Like, is this allowed in Mosaic law? Since when was this allowed in Mosaic law? I mean, are you going to execute people like Sam Harris, who's an apostate in your religion? No, because you don't care about Mosaic law. See, Moses and his followers, they followed God. They believed in God. They followed God. They were men of God. So when they established ancient Israel, it was a land based on, Jewish laws and customs. You guys don't follow Jewish laws and customs. You're secularist. So why are you making it seem like as if like, we, as in like you belong in their camp? You don't. You have nothing to do with them. So this is the thing, right? So in order to like make it seem like they have some legitimacy in claiming that Palestine belongs to them, they like to appeal to religion. But the moment they are pressured to enforce their religious law, they'll be like, no, we believe in secularism, we believe in veganism, we believe in LGBTQ, we believe in feminism and all this. Like, so whenever it's convenient for them, they become religious. But whenever it's not convenient for them, all of a sudden they become apostates. It's just absolutely laughable and absolutely hypocritical. I mean, seriously, if I was there, I would have asked this clown this question. I mean, are you going to execute people like Sam Harris, who's an apostate from your religion? Because that's what the Bible says. Are you going to follow the Bible? If you're not going to follow the Bible, then how are you follower of Moses? Because Moses established those laws. He tried to establish those laws. But you're not establishing those laws. You're not going to stone people to death. You're not going to punish adulterers. You're going to allow LGBTQ. You're going to allow feminism. And then somehow you try to equivocate yourself with like followers of Moses. Amazing, isn't it? Subhanallah. That's clowns, man.
Generation after generation, the Jews could be in Warsaw, they could be in Yemen, they could be in China, and they said next year in Jerusalem, we'll come back next year in Jerusalem. Well, that was made possible because
Really, who said that? No one said that. No Jewish person was sitting in China being like, hey, you know what? Let's have a land in the middle of Palestine where people are already living in it. Sure, I'm sure that like I don't doubt that Jewish people want a home, but to think that somehow they're all like wanting to return to like this kind of like Palestine is just laughable. It's just simply not true, because they were scattered. There was no like Zionism did not exist before like 19th century. So this idea that somehow they were all like yearning to return to the promised homeland is absolutely false. But anyway, let's continue.
Arabs who had conquered the land basically left it barren. They never made it their own. It was a barren land. It really had.
What are you talking about? So you say it was a barren land? Really? Just Google like the history of Nakba. You know what? Let me share this. Nakba. It takes like 5 minutes. Let me share the screen. Yeah. What does it say? The Nakba, the disaster catastrophe, also known as the Palestinian catastrophe, was the destruction of Palestinian society and homeland in 1948 and the permanent displacement of the majority of Palestinian Arabs. The term is described both events of 1948 and ongoing occupation of Palestine in Palestinian territories. The foundational events of the Nakba took place during the shortly after 1948 Palestinian War, including 78% of mandatory Palestine being declared as Israel, and the expulsion of and flight of 700,000 Palestinians, 700,000, and the depopulation and destruction of over 500 Palestinian villages, 500. So these are all barren wasteland. Does this sound like barren wasteland, or does it sound like there are thousands of people that were living there and you kicked them out? Which one is it? This guy's such a liar. Subhanallah. Like, I mean, like again, like Jordan Peterson, like there's something wrong with this guy. Like, because the thing is that it takes 5 seconds to find this out. It takes 5 seconds to debunk this. And here he's sitting like being like, like this guy's cringe. And he's openly lying. And I think Peterson knows that he's lying. And yet, like, he gives no pushback. What a clown. But let's continue.
Practically, it was an empty land. And in the 19th century, the idea of
empty land, right? 700,000 people were kicked out for no reason then. The empty land. Then where did these people come from? So,
back next year in Jerusalem became a reality. By the way, in part because of Christian Zionist support for the idea of the Great Return. The Jews came back in the 19th century to the land of Israel. The result of this return was that we started building farms, factories, places of employment. Arabs from nearby countries started.
Also, they didn't build anything. Like they were like going around bombing people, bombing European like buildings and stuff like that. Like, so basically, the early kind of like Zionist movement was very based on terrorism. And they're terrorizing villagers. They're terrorizing even the British like officials. So just absolute rubbish.
Immigrating, and they call themselves Palestinians. They reconstructed history and said, we've been here for centuries. No, they haven't. They weren't there at all. And they didn't have a national consciousness.
Really? So then why did you kick those people out if they weren't there? Like, what is he talking about? Like the people in Palestine can trace their ancestry back to like the Ottoman Empire and even before then. There are people like there are actual documents that can show that how long they've lived here. But these people that have moved here, immigrated here, they have no evidence. They absolutely no evidence for this. By the way, remember the question. The question was, does Israel have a right to exist? And nothing he said, he didn't say a single thing that would justify that. All he said, oh, Moses existed. Yeah, okay, what does Moses have to do with you? And you establishing a secular country in the middle of people where already people are living in it. Nothing. Like he gives no justification for why there should be a state called Israel in middle of Palestine. He just says ancient history or like these people that lived there, and also doesn't show any evidence that he has any connection to these people. I mean, he doesn't follow Mosaic law. He doesn't punish like adulterers and all like religious people. So what's the connection there? Because ancient Israel was based on God's law. You don't follow God's law. You believe in secularism. So like, what are you, what are you talking about? And that's the thing. Like Jordan Peterson, clearly this was a propaganda, right? And Jordan Peterson, the reason he invited Netanyahu is because they get funded by kind of like this kind of like Israeli Zionist lobbies. So they wanted a propaganda piece. They didn't want anyone to like challenge them or anything like that. And because of that, he had him completely unchallenged. Like everything, like you guys saw, right? Like I went like 2 minutes. It took me 2 minutes to 5 seconds to debunk everything he said. 5 seconds. Like that's all it takes. And you're telling me that Jordan Peterson can figure out to debunk him for like I don't know, like he can debunk him in like 1 hour 30 minutes. So clearly, Jordan Peterson is in on this. He's a Zionist. He supports Zionism, and this was clearly a propaganda piece.
Came back, made it our land, and we said, okay, we live together. We decided to establish a state in 1948. That's 75 years ago. And we
decided to establish a state in the middle of a country, another country that already existed. Yeah, that's known as terrorism, my guy. That's known as terrorism. That's known as international violation of international law. That's actual terrorism.
Everybody can live here. The Arab said there can't be a Jewish state. You have no right to be here. It's our land. It's not your land. It's been our land for 3,500 years.
What? It's been our land for 35. This guy lived before for 3,000s of years. These guys have barely been living for like thousands of years. Like no, like Moses and his followers have nothing to do with you. Like show us evidence that your lineage comes from Moses, or like not even from Moses. Like show us some kind of documentation that your family or your grandfather or your ancestors, had lived in this area and they owned land. Like show us some evidence, some documentation. He showed nothing. Then why should the state of Israel exist? Like you showed no evidence. All you did is like a religious kind of like history, not even history. Like, and even if I take like this kind of like religious narrative, it still doesn't justify your land because you're not establishing God's law. You're establishing secularism. And what's funny is that a lot of Jewish people or rabbis especially faces a lot of kind of anti-Semitic kind of like anti-Semitism and religious discrimination from secular Zionists like him. So it's just absolutely laughable that he thinks that he can lay claim to Palestine without any evidence whatsoever. But let's continue.
If you took over somebody's apartment, knocked them out, dispossessed them, and they never gave up the claim, they said it's our claim, and you left this barren dump.
What? So then he uses So then he uses this like dumb analogy of like, oh, we were in this apartment and they came and kicked us out. No, that's not what happened. What happened is that there was this apartment and then some other people came and kicked you out. Then some other people came and bought the apartment and settled there. Then they invited you back, right? They invited you back. Then you left. Then all of a sudden you decided, you know what? We want this back. Then you came back. Like that's what actually happened, because the Romans are the one who banned the Jewish people, okay? And during the Rashidun Caliphate, they actually lifted the ban. They allowed them to come back, So like, what is he talking about? They allowed them to come back, and they left, and then now all of a sudden they want the land back. Like that is assuming that they have anything to do with like the people that lived at that time, because there's no evidence that they have anything to do with the people that are living in Palestine now. Oh, sorry, Israel now. So remember the question. The question was, does Israel have a right to exist? And he showed nothing, absolutely nothing, other than some stories of like, oh, some ancient Israelites lived there. But you know what? If we go by this logic, you know who lived there before ancient Israelites? Canaanites. So by this logic, should the Canaanites, should Palestine belong to like the Canaanites then? By the way, you know what's interesting? The the lineage of Canaanites actually does exist even to this day. And there's some study that shows that some modern people can actually trace their lineage back to people of Canaan. For example, let me share research that I found. This is interesting. Where is it? Here we go. Here. So there are a few articles. Let me hold up. There we go. Let me share the screen. So this one is from Know Your DNA. It says, who are the Canaanites today? So basically, they did kind of like a research. Canaan is best known as biblical promised land of the Israelites. As the story grows, Yahweh promised them land flowing with milk and honey, descendants of Abraham, the ancient Israelites. In the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, it was said that God ordered the Israelites to destroy Canaan and his people after the Exodus from Egyptian Empire. The book of Joshua describes how Israelites conquered 13 Canaan cities. However, archaeological data suggests that this biblical account may or may not be true. There is no evidence of Canaan being abandoned or destroyed. Now, again, like, to be fair, like, of course, like, just because there's no evidence for something, that doesn't mean it's false. But at the same time, from a secular, non kind of like historical point of view, I don't think anyone can argue that, like, uh, you know, the claims of like this Zionists are true in any shape or form, but whatever. So here it says why some biblical passages say they were wiped out. A recent study shows that Canaanites live on as modern Arabs and Jews. Earlier findings also suggest that people from modern Lebanon can trace 90% of the ancestry to the ancient Canaanites. So modern Lebanon, so people who live in Lebanon, so if you anyone guys are from Lebanon, go to Palestine, it belongs to you. Imagine if the Lebanese people started claiming that Palestine now belongs to them. That's the logic, right? The logic is, oh, our ancient ancestors lived here, therefore this lands belong to us. Okay, but if by this logic, the Lebanese people, they can also claim that, oh, our ancient ancestor, the Canaanite, they lived here before Israelites, so it belongs to us then, right? But anyway, so this is another one research, but there's another research on on national geography, I think. Let me share. Here we go. Here. So DNA from Bible's Canaanites lives on in modern Arab and Jews. A new study of ancient DNA traces the surprising heritage of these mysterious Bronze Age people. Now, now to be fair, when it comes to because I'm going to defend the Bible a little bit. So a lot of this kind of like modern, kind of like atheist, secular historian, what they will say that, oh, there's no evidence that Canaan was destroyed and whatnot. Now I'm gonna defend the Bible a little bit here, because the thing is that just because there are people that can trace their roots back to ancient Canaan, or the people of Canaanites, doesn't necessarily mean that Canaanite was never destroyed. Because the thing is that what the Bible describes, at least it seems like, is that they drove them out. That doesn't necessarily mean that they were all killed. Like, it could be that there's a lot of them left the city and some of them populated elsewhere. So this doesn't necessarily disprove what the Bible is saying. But the point is that if you're going to make claims to land like the land of Israel, then you need better evidence than this, than the Bible. But anyway, so as I was saying, a study in Cell also shows that migrants from distant Caucasian mountains combined with indigenous population from to the forge the unique Canaanite culture that dominated the area between Egypt, Mesopotamia during Bronze Age, lasting for approximately 3,500 BC until 1,200 BC. So basically, these people of Canaan actually did exist. There are archaeological evidence that people of Canaan actually did exist, but there are also evidence that shows that ancient Israelites also existed, right? However, what they did is they tracked down their DNA and they found. There we go. So the study, collaborative effort between Cameron Lab, Ancient DNA Lab at Harvard University, headed by genetics David Rick and others, was by far largest its type of origins. Mark Harbour, a geneticist at Wellcome Trust Research Institution in Spain, United Kingdom, collated a 2017 study of 5 Canaanite individuals from the coastal town of Sidon. The results showed that modern Lebanese can trace more than 90% of their genetic ancestry to Canaanites. So yeah, modern day Lebanese people can make, like, if we go by this kind of like Netanyahu logic, and if we go by this Zionist logic that Israel, current Israel or current day Palestine belongs to the Israeli Jewish people because their ancient ancestors lived here, then by this logic, Palestine belongs to the Lebanese people because their ancient ancestor also lived there. So, like, what are you gonna do then? Like, so you guys can clearly see this is such a stupid and fallacious argument, because just because your kind of like ancient ancestors lived here doesn't necessarily mean that the land belongs to you, right? What you have to show is that you have to show some kind of documentation, some kind of evidence that shows that your ancestor actually did live in the land, which the Palestinians can show. Like, the Palestinians that currently live in this land can show generation before, long, even dating back to the Ottoman period, that their ancestors did live here. But some of these people that are moving in here now, other than they're what it says in the Bible, there's no evidence that they have any claim to these lands. And this is simply not how land dispute works. You can just simply lay claim to a land because some book says so. Or even if I was to accept this argument, it doesn't make sense, because anyone then lay claim to any land. I mean, as a matter of fact, Indo-Aryans, people that lived mostly in India and Pakistan and like Bangladesh, some people suggest that my people, which is the Indo-Aryans, they came from Iran. So does it does it mean Iran now belongs to Bangladeshis? No, it's just not how this works. Like, it's just so stupid. But oh, by the way, 3 people are watching. Thank you guys for joining me. By the way, leave some comments, inshallah. If you guys have any question, I'm actually going to end this soon. I just wanted to react to this nonsense interview. Oh, sorry, nonsense interview between Jordan Peterson and and Netanyahu. Now, we of course heard from this nonsense from Netanyahu. So let's hear something from Jordan Peterson supposedly pushing back. Then I'm gonna make my comment.
Somehow there in Israel first and have been displaced in a colonial that.
Go to hallow.com/Jordan today.
So why do you think the claim that the Palestinians were somehow there in Israel first and have been displaced in a colonial occupation?
Because they can prove it, genius. They can literally prove it.
Let's say by the Jews. Why do you think that idea has gained such cachet, not least in the West?
Because of ignorance? I mean, what do you mean they were here first? Well, you're familiar with the story of Jesus, right? Jesus was a Jewish rabbi living 2,000 years ago. He was a rabbi from...
Dude, he's going to Jesus lived here. That means that this secular state of Israel should be built on top of other people's land. Argument. What a stupid argument. This guy's an idiot. Wallahi, this guy's an idiot. Like, who is he thinking he's convincing here? Like, this guy's an absolute idiot. I'm sorry to speak like this, but this guy's an idiot. I can't believe this person was an elected official. And his argument is, there's this religious, narrative that says that some ancient people, and even if I was to grant some ancient Israelites lived here, that still doesn't justify you giving, people giving you lands where people already live in. That's just not how it works. Not to mention that the people that lived there, for example, Jesus, he criticized the rabbis. Like, the Christians and Jews don't agree on which laws to focus on or which laws to follow, right? So, like, why is he bringing up Jesus here? Like, this is just absolutely ridiculous. Also, like, so basically, I think what he's trying to do is that he's trying to appeal to Zionist Americans, like Americans or evangelicals, who basically support Zionism or the state of Israel for their own interest. So in case you guys don't know, so from what I understand is that a lot of kind of like American evangelicals support state of Israel because they think it's gonna bring up the end times or something like that. But the thing is that how does like all the like justification that Netanyahu showed, none of it justifies this idea that Israel should have the right to exist. None of it justifies it. There's no like evidence, like they don't have any paper trail that shows that their ancestors lived here other than the religious narratives. And even if I were to accept religious narrative, the ancient Israel, even according to those narratives, left. They left the land. Then Muslims came here and settled here. Then Muslims allowed the Jewish people to come back and settle, like during the Rashidun Khilafat, because the Romans kicked them out. So they allowed them to stay here, and then they left again because they were depopulated. And now all of a sudden they're making laying claim to the land. Like, it's just bizarre. And like I said, and I said this before, imagine if you're living in an apartment, right? An apartment building. And all of a sudden, someone comes in and kick you out. And then years go by, then you decide, you know what, I'm going to come back and try to fight these people or whatever. And you fail. And then some other people comes and takes it, and they say that, you know what, since you guys are trying so hard, we're going to allow you to stay here. Then they come here and stay here. And then then they leave. Then all of a sudden they decide, you know what, this apartment belongs to me. That's what's happening. It's just a bizarre claim, and they have no evidence. Like, he showed no kind of like non-religious justification as to why the state of Israel should exist, because by international law, as of now, state of Israel is basically based on a complete illegal occupation. They are occupying other people's land. It's an apartheid. So it's just like it's disgusting, and the fact that people like Jordan Peterson are trying to justify this, it shows that what kind of person he is. But regardless, let's continue.
From the Galilee, okay? He came to Jerusalem, he turned the money tables of the tables of the money changers on the Temple Mount. Where did that happen? Did it happen in Tibet? It happened here. Jerusalem was our capital. King David made it our capital 3,000 years ago. So the Jews
Okay, so Jesus lived here. So what? What does that prove? So Jesus lived here. That proves that we should have the right to build another country in the middle of another country. Like, it doesn't follow. What's it talking about? Even if I said that, did you know that Alexander the Great lived in Greece? Because Alexander the Great lived in Greece, therefore I have a right to make claims, land claims in Greece. Like, what do you have to do with Alexander the Great? And how does this justify you making claims in another people's land? I mean, okay, let's grant for the sake of argument, okay, Jesus lived there. So what? Like, how does that prove your claim?
they're here. To try to say that they weren't here and that the Palestinians were here thousands of years ago is ridiculous. Anybody who you can actually Google this and find out how absurd this thing is. So as far as reinventing,
like even if I were to grant Israelis lived there, how does that justify your claim to build a new country in the middle of another country? Like, you notice how he is not actually answering the question of does Israel actually have a right to exist or not? He's just avoiding it. He's just saying, oh, in the ancient past, some people lived here, and I think we have some connection with these people, therefore we should have the right to live here. Like, based on this, anyone can lay claim to any land then, right? Like, I can make claims on Iran. Like, I could say, oh, my ancient ancestor lived in Iran, so I should have claim in Iran. Or I have a claim in I don't know, maybe India or Africa or Pakistan or whatever, right? So it's just this is not how land ownership or claim works. Like, the way it works is that in the past, people usually settled in different places, and then as long as you can provide evidence that this settlement happened, and government recognizes that, then you're a citizen of that area. And during the Ottoman period, at least, it was already established that the Muslims and the Palestinians that lived there were people of that land. And since the Ottoman Empire was broken apart, Palestinians lived there, right? So you can just come here and say that, oh, they have no claim to the land without any evidence or justification. Anyway.
ancient history, that is unpardonable, because anybody can find out and understand
It
that the
is
Jews were
ancient
here
history. Like, what does that have to do with like you making a secular country in the middle of another country?
for thousands of years. The Palestinians weren't here. As far as modern times are concerned,
So stupid. Like, of course the Palestinians were here. Like, what is he talking about? They are Palestinian Jews. Like, Palestinian means people basically who can at least provide some evidence that they lived here at least for some generations. You guys cannot do that. You cannot just come from Germany and make claims in Palestine without any evidence.
what the Palestinians have said is, and I write this in my book, and I show it because it's so comical. What they say is, we were here. Palestine was a verdant land in the 19th century, teeming with the Palestinians until the Jews came in.
Yeah, so now he's gonna start on another tangent, which is that apparently some tourists apparently came to Palestine and they said that like, oh, they were like just like desert and there was nothing there. Yeah, I know it's in Middle East. There are supposed to be deserts. So what? Like, no one is saying that Palestine was like some kind of a green jungle. Like, no one's claiming that. But that doesn't mean that there were no cities there. There were no villages there. Of course, there were villages there. Like, even if you will go to like I don't know, like Dubai a few hundred years back, it was mostly Bedouins. But just because it was mostly Bedouin doesn't mean it justifies you to like kick out these people and take their land. No. So and this is another argument that he like Zionists try to make, which is that they'll say, oh, they didn't do anything with the land. Just because they didn't do anything with the land doesn't justify you taking their land. As a matter of fact, I think this is some of the same kind of like colonial justification a lot of kind of like Americans use against the native population, which is that, oh, they didn't know what they're doing. They were just kind of like savage, kind of barbarian people. Like, they were not using the land really. There were a lot of land and we needed land. But it doesn't justify anything. You're just saying that we want to take land from these people because they were not doing anything with it. By this logic, like, I can also like make claims in the moon. No one's using the moon, so the moon like belongs to Bangladesh now. It's so stupid. I mean, like, I can go on and on about the stupidity of like the Zionist logic here, but anyway. So Jordan Peterson seems like just accepting all this kind of rubbish claim, and he's not pushing back at all. And then he's like writing on Twitter like, "Oh, give them hell." And even though he showed no justification for why Israel should even exist in the first place, neither could his friend. And they're saying that this should justify them to commit like genocide against Palestinians or massacre against Palestinians or like violence against Palestinians. Somehow this justifies, sacrificing like children and like starving them, when in reality they have no claim whatsoever, no evidence for their claim.
Took it over and threw it out. Okay, well, that's what Arafat effectively said in his infamous speech in the United Nations, blaming Zionism, equating Zionism with racism. Well, there's only one problem with that. He said that the Jewish invasion of this verdant Palestinian homeland happened in 1881. Okay, the problem with that, the same thing. When will the Jews come back and bring this land to life? And the answer is right then. We came back, brought it back to life. There were Arabs living here, but it was, as I say, a barren wasteland. But Arabs began to immigrate naturally because we created a rise in the standard of living that attracted Arabs from neighboring states. Those Arabs are now the descendants of those Arabs who migrated as a result of
barren wasteland. So what? Yeah. So imagine if I said that, I think that Russia, there's a lot of like barren wasteland in Russia, therefore Russia should belong to us. They're not doing anything with it. In India, there's a lot of barren wasteland, no one's living there, so it should belong to us. I mean, if they wanted to simply settle there, that would have made sense, because like I can understand, like, let's say for the sake of let's be a bit empathetic to the Israeli people. Let's say, okay, fine. Let's say that Israeli people have been very rude and cruel to Jewish people. Let's say that they should live in a particular land, right? Okay, fine, no problem. Then if you want to settle in that land, if you want to immigrate, then yeah, I do think that you should have the right to do that. And Palestinians don't have a problem with it. What Palestinians have a problem with it is when you make claim that this whole area belongs to us and it should rule by our laws. That's the problem here. The problem here is that you guys want the Palestinians to live under your boot. That's the problem. See, if you simply wanted to peacefully coexist and simply immigrate there, no one would have an issue. But that's not what you want. You want to build a whole entire country and want to bring the native people that actually own the land under your rule without any justification. That's the problem. And here this guy's like, oh, this land belongs to us because they're not using it. Anyway, let's continue.
Of the Jewish return, many of them now are considered Palestinians. So what I'm saying, and I'm saying this to you, Jordan, and to your audience, there's been a complete fabrication of history. It's the biggest lie of the big lies.
You're the one who's lying, no one else. But anyway, let me go to what Peterson says.
You might think of that as being a time frame long enough to allow for a valid claim of sovereignty ownership from the 70s. Speaking,
A lot of hokum. It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
Well, some of it also seems to be, I would say, technically speaking, something like a time frame problem. Right? I mean, you said the Arabs came in the 7th century, and that's a long time ago. And so from the 7th century to now, you might think of that as being a time frame long enough to allow for a valid.
Also, it's not just that Arabs came here and settled here. It's also the fact that most of the Palestinians that live there can actually prove that the land belongs to them. However, the Jewish settlers, oftentimes that are settling there, cannot prove that claim. They simply do not have the evidence other than the Bible. That is not good enough to take over someone else's land, especially if people are living there already. It's not the case that the Jewish people are simply coming here to settle here. If that was the case, no one would have an issue. But what they want is that they want to kick them out. They want to take over the land and establish their own government, and then they want to allow some Palestinians to live here. Not even they don't even want that, because clearly they're kicking them out. Because as you guys can see the famous map that they have of Israel or Palestine, you saw how Israel is constantly expanding. It's going outwards. So this is clearly a completely disingenuous attempt to this is colonization. There's no other way to put it. So that's the problem here. So first of all, this is already a straw man that Jordan Peterson is doing. But let's
claim of sovereignty ownership. But the Jews' rejoinder is, well, we have a much older claim than that, one that spans 3,500 years.
And Canaanites also have an even much older claim than that. So does that now justify Lebanese people who can trace their ancestry back to the Canaanites to make claims in Palestine, or me making claims in Iran because my ancestors are from Iran, or if I make claims in India or something like that? It's just dumb.
The problem I have with that conceptually, and then I'll get to some other issues that are relevant to this, is that it's not exactly obvious what time frame of analysis should be primary.
You have a very
and I hope we know how to solve that.
I do.
Yeah, exactly. And I will give some props to Jordan Peterson here, although he's kind of a scoundrel, which is that he makes the same argument that I've been making, which is that why should one time frame or time period be preferred over another time period, right? Why is it that when ancient Israelites time period should be preferred over the Palestinian people and when they lived here, right? But that's not necessarily my argument. My argument was that the Palestinians that are living here right now can prove their claim to the ownership of their land. The Israelis that are settling here right now cannot. They're simply being settled here by sheer force, and nothing else, and that is not right. But let's see what this clown says, and after his response, we're gonna end the show, inshallah.
I'll answer your question. It's a valid question. If the Arabs, having conquered the land in the 7th century and dispossessed the Jews over the next 2 centuries, the Jewish farmers kicked them out and so on, if they established a viable state, a viable national identity there and so on, you're right. These things happen in history.
They did establish a viable source of identity. What are you talking about? They've been living there for hundreds of years. That's not viable enough for you? They can even prove that they've been living here for hundreds of years. And what evidence do you have? Nothing, other than some stories from the Bible. Which, by the way, these stories from the Bible, atheists like Sam Harris is not even going to be able to justify. So a lot of kind of secular people won't be able to justify unless you're like a Christian or a Jew.
You're supplanted by other people, fine. But that's not what happened. The Arab conquerors themselves were replaced by other. First of all, they did nothing with the land. It's just barren. They actually built one town. It's called Ramle. That's it.
What's he talking about? Does he expect he's saying the Palestinians, they did nothing with the land, really? So then why was nearly 700,000 people were kicked out? These people, where did they come from? Why did the Nakba happen? So stupid. They did nothing with the land. So what do you expect them to do? They were farmers, right? They were farmers. They were sheep herders. Do you expect them to build a spaceship to travel between different galaxies, like in Star Wars? What does he expect exactly? Of course, development doesn't happen this quickly. If you guys did not take over the land, who knows? Maybe Palestine could have been a very society, a thriving country. But you guys didn't let that happen. You guys didn't let the Palestinian people, which by the way includes Jewish people, because there are Palestinian Jews who can also trace back their ancestry. And it could have been a thriving country, but you guys didn't let that happen. You guys destroyed their hope. You guys destroyed their identity. So it's like, it's like they're saying that, oh, why can't they have been more developed? Yeah, because you didn't let them. You didn't let them, genius. Let's continue, inshallah.
Hundreds and hundreds of Jewish biblical sites and hundreds and thousands of hundreds of new sites that we built. The Arabs built one place, one town called Ramla. That's it. So they did nothing with them.
So yeah, they're saying that, oh, look at the Jews. They built so many temples and whatnot. They built all these kind of like buildings and whatnot. Now, how does this justify? So okay, so his logic is that if someone builds a building in in someone else's land, because you need to understand that buildings were built on Canaanite land, right? The Canaanite was genocided. And they built the according to the Bible, the biblical history, the Canaanites were genocided against. They built the land on top of them. So by this logic, then the land should belong to the Romans, the Italians, right? Because the Romans also built buildings there. So why shouldn't it? As a matter of fact, the Romans built more lavish buildings. They built more lavish buildings. So why shouldn't the area belong to the Romans? Muslims also built. Also, this is not true. Like the Muslims, the Arab conquerors, also built a lot of mosques. There are a lot of like really beautiful mosques there. So what is he talking about? Of course, they built like mosques and like lands. Like just bizarre like claim. Like some of the most beautiful mosques are in Palestine. So it's just flat out lying. Like this guy, man. This guy's an idiot.
Then they were replaced by other conquerors. Other conquerors came in. The Mamluks, the Ottomans, ultimately the British, a series of conquerors. In other words, they took over the land, lost the land, and did nothing with the land. So if they had done what you...
They did nothing with the land. They lived in the land, genius. Like, what more do you want? So living in the land is not like good enough for him, I guess. Apparently. Like they have evidence that they lived in the land, okay? Both in the Ottoman period and during the Palestinian period. You guys have no evidence that your ancestors even lived in the land. Like all you have is stories from the Bible. That's it. But even if I accept the stories from the Bible, it still doesn't justify why there should be a secular state. Because if I go by the stories, there should be a theocratic state, which is not what you're trying to build. You're trying to build like a secular state that promotes LGBTQ, that promotes feminism. So nothing he said justifies the state of Israel.
You say, if they had created, if that house that we were expelled from was taken over by another people, another family, they built a family there, they had children, grandchildren, they extended the porch, they built the parking garage, and so on. What can you do? You still have the ability to demand reclamations, compensation, and so on. But tough luck. That happens in history. But that's not what happened. Once the Jews were conquered by the Arabs did nothing with it, lost the land to others. Now,
absolutely false. They are built way more than many of the Jewish people ever did. Like some of the most beautiful landmarks, like for the Masjid al-Aqsa, from all the oldest mosques that even is there. As a matter of fact, I believe that Umar bin Khattab actually built allowed the Jewish people to build temples there. So what is he talking about? It was the Romans that kicked you out, kicked the Israelites out.
we come back and bring it back to life 13 centuries later. And
okay, I think I understand what he's trying to say. So basically, he's trying to say that, the Palestinians, they didn't do anything with the land, and we came here and we built a thriving civilization and all this, and look at that, that doesn't justify you taking someone else's land. Just because, imagine this, right? Imagine a bandit comes to a land and builds a very beautiful building. Would that now justify that bandit taking over someone else's land? No. Okay, for what example should I use? The Nazis, right? The Nazis built a lot of buildings. They improved a lot of infrastructure, schools and whatnot in the lands they conquered. Does it now justify that the Europe should belong to the Nazis? No. It's just bizarre argument. The British built a lot of beautiful houses in India. Doesn't mean that India now should belong to England. Like it's just so stupid. But anyway, I'm just having a headache listening to this clown. I think I'm gonna end this here. So as you guys heard, I basically reacted and responded to his claim that the secular state of Israel should exist on top of Palestine. And as you guys saw, it's just a rubbish claim. Like there's no evidence that they have or any kind of justification for to build a secular country in the middle of middle of another country. They have no justification for this. The only justification they could probably give is probably to say that, oh, this was decided by like the colonial empires. That's why we have some claim to this land. But he didn't even say that. But even then, like the colonial empires have broken apart. Like they don't exist anymore. So, and just because the colonizers did something doesn't justify anything, because like colonizers did a lot of things. The colonizers also colonized India. Like they colonized a lot of countries and they also left that area. So this claim falls apart. And right now the legit claim is that the Palestinians can prove their ancestry, that can prove that these lands belongs to them, and the Israelites cannot. Okay, other than some ancient stories from the Bible, they have no evidence. Now, again, this would be fine if they simply want to settle there. But the problem is they don't simply want to settle there. They want to build a whole country and want the native people to live under their boot. Okay, so like they have literally no justification for any of this. And he failed to answer this simple question, which is that should the country of Israel exist? No, it should not, because you guys have literally no claim to these lands. You have no evidence that these lands belong to you or it ever belonged to you. But anyway, I guess that's about it. By the way, I see that 3 people are watching. Alhamdulillah. Thank you guys for joining me. If you guys have any question, you can ask me. I'm gonna go in a few bit. So yeah, if you're gonna wanna subscribe to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. I just wanted to make this like this response video because you guys know what's going on with like Palestine and Israel right now. There's a lot of fighting going on, and the media is constantly doing this news where, especially the Western media, where they're showing like the Palestinians, they're like terrorists and whatnot. So I feel like we need to do some like pushback against it to help some of our Muslim brothers and sisters, because this is going to lead to more violence and bloodshed against Palestinians. And I just wanted to show that they just don't have any claims to these lands, and it's an illegal occupation. And that's it. Again, thank you guys for joining me. Inshallah, I'm gonna start working on my next video. It's gonna be on Apostle Aladdin. That guy. I just want to make this video in the meantime. So I'm not gonna do any live stream in the meantime. Inshallah, I'm gonna come back maybe next week. Perhaps the video will be uploaded. So I'm gonna take a bit of a break. But again, thank you guys for watching, and do subscribe and share the video. And yeah, if you guys like the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you want to support me, you can support me by becoming a Patreon or by becoming a YouTube member. And again, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me play the outro. All right, brother Muhammad Noman Bhat said, "Walaikum assalam." Walaikum assalam, bro. You came a bit late, but thanks for the comment. Yeah, I'm actually ending the show. So yeah, thank you guys for joining, and I'll see you guys next time, inshallah. Bye.